And good afternoon. Welcome to the Loop with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590. Thank you for making us part of your day. And as I was thinking about my next guest, I was wondering to myself, who in the world would do a great job of being on a radio show other than a newspaper man? And not just any newspaper man, the newspaper man from Kennett, Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD, affectionately known as that, the Delta Dunklin Democrat. Jeff, may I call you Jeff?
Yes, you may.
Jeff, welcome to the booth.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Jeff, for those who don't know you, and I find that hard to believe, tell the listeners a little bit about Jeff Dorris.
Well, spent most of my life in the Chicagoland area, but all my people are from down here. We're related to the Davidsons, the Gores, the Dorrises. They were in Blytheville, Gosnell, Kennett, of course. So off and on all my life, I've lived down here. At times, we had a grocery store. Remember when they had neighborhood grocery stores and every little corner had one? Well, we had one, and it was in Hayti. And we ran that for a while, and then Dad would start a business, and then he'd get tired of it or whatever, and we wound up moving back up north, but. I came down here to be close to my parents, and my wife's parents live in Conway, Arkansas, so we relocated. But most of my life was spent in the Chicagoland area.
Absolutely. And again, we're welcome to the booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590. Talking to Jeff Dorris. Jeff has an amazing story, and I don't know if a lot of people know about this about Jeff. Jeff, but you're a very, very talented singer.
Other people have ideas about that, but okay.
Well,
I'll take it.
We're going to go with a very, very talented singer. Tell the listeners a little bit about Jeff Dorris, the entertainer.
Well, that's how I made my living for a majority of my life. A majority of my people were in the music business. My dad played stand-up bass fiddle for Carl Perkins and Carl Mann when they came out of Memphis and would be up here and playing some of these old roadhouses and honky-tonks like Club Zanza and places like that. And so I was around music all my life. And when I was a junior in high school, I started playing with bands. I was actually too young. We'd have to sometimes go in front of city councils and say, hey, this is our lead singer. His name is Jeff. He's underage, but can he, and they'd have to say, okay, sure, let him come in. And that's how I got started playing with bands. And then I started, graduated high school, went to college to be a journalist. Thought I wanted to be a journalist. Always was playing, though. We'd play every weekend, sometimes through the week. And I was, discovered there was a man in the audience come up and introduced himself, said he was an agent, and he was very interested in signing me, and he didn't want the band. They were a bunch of local boys, and he said, I'll put you with what we call a show band, and we'll tour, and let's see what happens, So I went home, real excited, told my mom and dad, hey, look, this is what happened. And, Dad, of course, absolutely not.
Absolutely.
No way. He said, that's a fickle business. You go, you got your little band, you play on the weekends, you go into the city and do that. But no, don't do that. So, I thought about it for about a day, books and learning and that are on the road and girls and music. Well, I quit. So off on the road I went. And, it was very successful. We did real well.
And again, we're on the Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD here in Kennett, talking about Jeff's early career, that being an entertainer. And Jeff, as we were talking off the air, you indicated your father was a stand-up bass player. He played with Club Zanza, which was over in Hayti.
Yeah.
And we call it the B&B, which was in Gobbler. Is that correct?
Yeah, he was from Gobbler originally.
And at one time, Elvis Presley played there. Is that correct?
Sure.
And you indicated that you were in a club and you were discovered. Tell me about that experience. Did you travel all over the United States?
I traveled a lot, yeah. We with the band, we traveled mostly in the Midwest area. But what happened was I'd been in the music business a long time, and you have groupies, you have people that come around, and this one girl, she started coming around quite often, and somehow or another, she wound up pregnant. So we get, and I'm from the South, so the parents said, that's it, you're getting married. And I barely knew her, but we did get married, and I was still traveling, but my dad sat me down. He said, now look, now you're a dad. you're about to be a dad, and come on. And let's. So he said, tell the band, no more, you're done. So I went to work, and at that time he was running a snack food factory. They made popcorn, caramel corn, things like that, and he was the head of the plant. And so I didn't want to do it, but I did it, and I went to work for that factory, and I showed up in a suit, coat, and tie because my dad's the boss. So, and they laughed and they said, no, he tells you he wants you on that forklift. So I loaded semis, which was a lot different than after traveling and being in the music business, but. Certain things happened, and we were married for quite a while, but I missed the music business big time. And so I started playing with bands again, and a nightclub owner, he says, why don't you do a single act? Because I'd gotten tired of, I don't know if I mentioned, but I impersonated Elvis for many years, and we did that. That was part of the show. And in fact, in 1990, I came down here to Memphis to the International Elvis Tribute Show, and I came in fourth. So that was thrilling. And you know what you get when you get fourth place?
What's that?
Not a darn thing. You don't get nothing. You don't get a certificate. You don't get a picture. You get nothing. But it was you get a memory. I got a great memory. So I said, but I wanted to branch out and do other kind of music. I always liked the standards. I was a big Sinatra and Dean Martin, Rat Pack type Bobby Darin music fan, and karaoke started coming out, but it was on little cassette tapes, and they didn't have karaoke bars. It was just a new thing, and this gentleman told me about it, and I went to my wife and I said, well, I think I want to go in music again full time. And I'm going to buy a lot of these tapes, make a show around them. I'll make good money, but I can cut back the cost to the nightclub owners because I don't have to pay a drummer. I don't have to pay a guitar player. I got the full orchestra now. And that's really when it took off then. I did a single act for years.
And again, we're welcome to the booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD here in Kennett, talking a lot about his earlier days being a entertainer, traveling around. Jeff, when you were the single entertainer, you indicated a lot of your hits were that you liked was the Frank Sinatra, the Rat Pack, the Bobby Darin, and at some point you realized, hey, I can make a one-man show. When you were traveling around as a one-man show, what was the name of the act?
It was called The Jeff Dorris Show, Relive the Magic.
And explain to me how you came up with that name.
I don't know. I thought about it and relived the magic, because a lot of those folks, I was very fortunate. A lot of them were still living. I was able to go to Vegas and see. I saw Sinatra a bunch of times. I saw Dean just a whole bunch of times. He was my favorite. So I had an opportunity to see a lot of those guys, but they were going out. They passed away. So relive the magic. You can still come see my show and hear that kind of music. And I always did Elvis. I couldn't run from it. People would always ask. So, I did like a 3-hour show, and I would do X amount of music and then go change into the jumpsuits. And I wish I'd have saved some. I got rid of all my jumpsuits.
Outstanding. Again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590. Talking to Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD here in Kennett, about his earlier career entertaining. How did you come up with what songs you were going to sing and how you were going to put on this show? I mean, was it elaborate? Like, were you constantly doing costume changes and things of that nature, or did you just come out with your hair slicked back and just let it rock?
Yeah. When I was doing my single act, I was in a tux, so I would just wear my tuxedo, and then I had a portion of the show where I would get out of the tux and change into flamboyant Porter Wagner, because I did a little classic country, all them old country, and they always had rhinestone suits and all that, so I would wear that. And then, of course, I'd do the Elvis stuff, and then I'd wind up the night with a tuxedo again.
How many nights of the year would you be out traveling while you're doing this full time?
A bunch, a whole bunch. It's not good for a marriage. You're gone a lot. You're
right.
A star. And a lot of times, if I was playing resorts and I was there for 2 or 3 weeks, and it was somewhere where her and the kids could get to, one of the perks was you always got nice rooms to stay in. You know, you got suites, and it was very nice. They would come, but it just wasn't the same. I loved it, and she hated it. But I will say, being on the road with the band it was different. But with a single act, it can get lonely. Everybody thinks it's the funnest thing in the world, you know. But yeah, you're in a lot of hotel rooms, and you're just that's your life.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris. A little bit about Jeff's earlier days when he was traveling around. And I guess, you know, I envisioned you kind of being in your own, and I hate to say this, like a Mercury station wagon or a Lincoln Town car loaded to the brim with all your stuff, just kind of driving around by yourself from one location to the other. Is that about how it worked?
Yeah, that's about exactly how it was. Yeah, exactly.
And from the smile on your face, it looked like you loved every minute of it.
Oh, I enjoyed it for many, many years. Yeah. I mean, I love the paper business, and I love, you know, I like this area and all that. But if I had my druthers, I'd probably be over in Branson playing somewhere now, you know, doing something like that.
And I know, again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD, the Delta Dunklin Democrat, that's here in Kennett, Missouri. Jeff, I know that we've seen in the paper and on Facebook and things of that nature, you still perform a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, I'm the king of the nursing homes now.
Well, and you know, at some point your audience gets a little older is what you're trying to tell me, correct?
Yeah. And, you know, down here, the culture's kind of different. There's not a big call for Sinatra and all that. But the Elvis still goes over good, and the classic country. And I'm going to be playing in November. I'm going to go up and start trying to dip my toe in. I played private parties up there, but I'm going to start playing a couple of clubs in Cape Girardeau.
Oh, yeah. So where are you going to be in Cape Girardeau?
I can't tell you the name. I forget the name. I have to go look. But
and how
I will let you know.
Oh, you'll let me know. Outstanding. And
it'll be in the paper.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris. You indicated that you're still playing. You know, I know that the market down here is a little different. Frank Sinatra, though, I mean, when he sings "I Did It My Way," I mean, what better song could sum up someone's life than that?
Yeah, it's a great song, and yeah, I enjoyed seeing Frank. I enjoyed seeing Dean and all those guys, and they were just like all the stories you hear. It was the truth, you know. I seen Dean Martin, I don't know, countless times, and on every show, if he was in Vegas or if he was in Chicago, he'd say, "You never know, you know, Frank might show up." And we'd always think, "Oh, yeah, really?" And then one night in Chicago, at the Chicago Theater on State Street, I went to see him, and he was about halfway through the show, and, well, he had said it earlier, you know, "Hey, old Frank might show up." And I'm sitting over on this side, on the right side, and then on the left side, I see all these people getting up, standing ovation, and I'm like, what's going on? And then I see Sinatra come out of the wings, and he was carrying a bottle of Jim Beam, and Dean says, "Well, Frank, how'd you get here?" He said, "I walked all the way from Tennessee," you know. And they sat there, and they both did about 5 minutes, and then he said, "I brought someone else with me," and here comes Sammy Davis Jr. So I got to see all three of them on the stage of the Chicago Theater in State Street.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris about his past, which is still kind of his current love, that's singing. Talking about him singing the Rat Pack. Was Peter Lawford? What was that other thing?
Peter Lawford was in
Peter
the Rat
Lawford.
Pack. Yeah, they'd had a falling out.
Oh, they had at that point?
Yeah.
And you indicated you saw him. You talk a lot about Chicago, and I think Chicago has a special place in your heart. Is that right, Jeff?
Yeah, I just don't want to live there. It's a great place to visit, but 10 strong men couldn't make me live there no more.
And is that because of the below freezing temperatures? Or?
Well, that has a lot to do with it, and crime, and just taxes, and yeah, no, I didn't care for living there. I mean, I bet for 10, 11, 12 years, I would say every winter I have spent my last winter in Chicago, Illinois. I'm moving, and yeah, it's been great. This is wonderful. When I first moved down here, the first year, Steve Patton, you know, he was the editor
Yes,
at the DDD, but he had his own radio show
Right.
too, and he ran a little contest, it was like November, December, called when will Jeff Dorris ever wear a coat? And people would say, oh, they wear one, because it just didn't bother me. I didn't wear a coat the whole winter. Then I experienced the first summer and all that heat and humidity, and it was like my body adapted to that. And so now, low 50s and the 40s, I freeze. Just something about it. I can't take the cold.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD, Delta Dunklin Democrat here in Kennett, talking a lot about his career and his one-man show of Jeff Dorris, Relive the Magic.
Relive the Magic, although it's not called that any longer.
Oh, what is it now?
Well, now it's the Jeff Dorris Show from Vegas to the Boot Heel.
And have you got a new format set up for it?
Well, I don't do the jumpsuits. I like I said, I wish I'd have saved. I couldn't get one leg in them now. I've gained weight, but I do have a gold lame suit jacket that I wear when I do Elvis. That's it. Otherwise, it's the tux.
And again, I don't mean to be prying too much into the show, but I think it's very interesting. So let's say you do some Sinatra, let's say you do some Elvis. Are there certain standards that you're going to do every time, or are you going to kind of switch it up on? Is it going to be, in the ghetto? Is it going to be something like that? Or what are we going to have from the Elvis rendition?
Well, the Elvis stuff you have to do. And you know what? Patton used to say, you were so silly. I can't believe you. I've sang Suspicious Minds so many times. If I never hear it again, I'm good. But people love it. They love that song. So the standards you got to play. Don't Be Cruel, Hound Dog, But I like to throw in obscure Elvis songs. And when I'm not, it's not my living anymore. It's like a sideline. So I always said I'm going to do songs that I like.
Absolutely. And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris. Jeff, when you were in high school or middle school, did you think to yourself, you know what I want to be? I want to be a singer whenever I grow up?
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that, but I knew I just grew up around clubs a lot. So, I enjoyed singing. And like I said, I never thought that I sounded like Elvis. I still don't. I don't. I think I sound more like Dean Martin than I do Elvis. But all my life, like in high school, that was, if you look through my yearbooks, that's my nickname, Elvis, And then my coach, after gym, we'd all have to go in, and then he'd be flipping towels, so you go take a shower, and he'd be doing something, you go in and here's a towel, and then I'd show up, and he'd go, do me Elvis, and I'd say, come on, coach, and he said, no, do me Elvis, and I'd have to, don't be cruel. Said, that's it, and then so I didn't know if I was going to be a singer, but I knew people liked my singing.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris. And Jeff, one thing most people who are extremely talented realize or tell me is, when I hear myself sing, I don't think I'm that good.
Right.
I mean, why is that, do you think?
I don't know. I have no idea, but I always thanked God. I mean, I had a calendar on my wall, and I would tell my first wife at the time, when I was just doing full-time entertainment, I says, the prettiest sight, the best sight I've ever seen in my life is that calendar full a year in advance. And I don't know why I'm that lucky to do that, but I could. I'd book a year in advance, so we'd know we'd be set, for another year.
Absolutely. And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris. He's the managing editor of the DDD here in Kennett, the Delta Dunklin Democrat. And we're talking about his earlier career as a singer, and he's going to revitalize that in the Cape Girardeau area. So we're going to keep you apprised of that. Make sure you go and see him. It's an outstanding show. And about how long are you going to be performing? I mean, is it going to be a solid 3 hours?
Well, back in the day, it was a 3 to 4 hour show. I don't really want to do that anymore. I would like 2 hours tops with an intermission.
Outstanding.
So we'll see.
And just play it by ear. Is that correct?
Yeah. And when you don't sing all the time, you get rusty. It's a muscle, and there are certain songs that, if I were doing that again a lot, I'd really have to practice and be able to hit those notes. So that's why I think that's one of the reasons I like the crooners, because they didn't, You didn't have to hit high notes. They were just that easy listening. You just flowed out of you.
And again, you indicated that Dean Martin was probably your favorite.
Oh, out of those guys, yeah, no doubt, loved him.
Now, let me ask you about this. Dean Martin was also a little bit of an actor.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy him when he was in the movies with John Wayne?
Oh, yeah, loved him. Loved it all. Yeah, that was my favorite Western, Rio Bravo.
Why didn't they let him sing instead of Ricky Nelson?
I don't know. They did a little number, and they kind of did it together. I think Ricky was a teen idol, and they was trying to promote that, so kind of. And a little aside with that is when Ricky was making all those records, Hello, Mary Lou and Traveling Man, his lead guitar player was James Burton. And when Elvis went back out on the road in Las Vegas back in the 70s, he hired James Burton because he liked him from the old Ozzie and Harriet show. And he said, you can pick. And so he was Elvis's lead guitar.
Outstanding. Again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590. Talking to Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD, the Delta Dunkel Democrat. Jeff, you also indicated at some point in your life you were a counselor. Is that correct?
Yeah, I became a certified addictions counselor in behavioral health. Worked for a big outfit. It was the largest outfit in the Midwest for youth, but I worked in the adult. And I started out in residential inpatient, 30-day program. And I enjoyed that, and I worked there for about, I'd say I'd been there about 2 years. I worked 16 years there, but my third year, they also had a detox center. So people would come in high or coming off, and we would keep them and stabilize them anywhere from 3 to 5 days a week if it was really bad. And then we would move them to where they needed to go, either residential, inpatient, outpatient, or back to their home. We got them from all over America, and they could do treatment there. I really wanted to be on the front lines. I really wanted to help these people as soon as they came in. But 16 years of that, it'll wear on you.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of, there's a lot of death. A lot of times they don't take the suggestions, and you try and you try and you try. I got tired of going to visitations, and it was the weirdest thing because, some families, they're repeats. They keep coming back, so you get real close to the family. And some families, I would, if one did happen to pass, overdose, I would go to the funeral, and some families would, hug me and say, boy, you did a great job, and we just, and then some blame you because they feel it was your fault. So I got to where I would go early in the afternoon before anybody got there, pay my respects, and then. But it was really getting to me, and it was like anything else. Hard to get people to work nowadays.
Absolutely.
So I was working 2 shifts. I was working double shifts, 16-hour shifts, a lot, and my wife said, "It's stealing your joy. You're not Jeff anymore. And I said, yeah, I got to do something different.
And again, we're on KDX AM 1590. Welcome to the booth with Aaron Todd. Talking to Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD. Talk a lot about Jeff's history, how he wound up becoming the managing editor of the DDD. And Jeff, at some point you said you've been a counselor for 16 years, and it's just to the point where you need to do something different. You're up in the Chicago area, is that correct?
Yeah.
And you wanted to get a little bit closer to home because your family is from Kennett, correct?
Yep. Kennett in the Blyville area.
Area. So what'd you look to do?
Well, I was just going to transfer back and work in the addictions field. That's what I knew. And my cousin worked for FCC, she's director of nursing out there. And we talked. She got me in touch with some people, and we'd had a lot of talks over the phone back and forth. And I mean, it was just this close. It was close to happening. And it was just sat in the back of my mind, do I really want to do this again? I knew it'd be a change of pace. I knew they didn't have a detox center, so I knew I wasn't going to be dealing with that. But I just didn't, a lot of this stuff, when it happens to you, not to sound hokey, but it's got to be spiritual. I mean, that's all you can think of. It has to be God. Because when Donnie Shelton, he was the general manager of the DDD at the time, and he'd reached out through my father to me, asked me to come down and, basically work for a weekend. He said, I'll send you out on some assignments, see how you write. I said, okay. My wife thought I was crazy, but I came down and I did it, and they offered me a job. and they offered me a job for a lot less money. And I said, well, I'm not trying to be all that, but I just can't. I couldn't pay my bills if that was all. So they went back and they talked some more and came back and said, well, okay, we'll do this. Less money, but able to do it, So I came down here, and the first week, I didn't go out with anybody. They didn't show me how to use the recorder. They sent me to Zenith was getting a grand opening of a new Dayox Center. It's not new now, but
Right.
And the governor was going to be there, and they said, Jeff, go cover that. I said, you've got to be kidding. I'm not ready. And they said, no, you can do it. Go on, just go. Okay. So I drove over to Zenith, and I get out, and Channel 12 is there. I don't know, another channel. It's the governor, and I saw the governor over there, and all the security, people in black suits and all that, and so I saw the pool of journalists that were there, and I said, really, I'm brand new, man. Can you help me out? What do you do? I got this recorder and all this. And they said, well, his press person will come over and give us a talk in a minute, and it'll be all right. And I said, okay. So he come over and he said, okay, guys, do you prefer to interview him before the event or after the event, And he asked me first. He was like, and I said, oh, I don't care. Well, then they all were like, no, let's do it after. So we did it after, and I had that little recorder that's like, now it's attached. I take it everywhere. But I put that on that podium, and I didn't realize it. I'd put it on top of his speech. So there it went. Bloop. He took it and he just kind of tossed it. It said, no recorder. But that was baptism by fire. That was my first gig. And then I did get to talk to the governor. And, I found out they're just people like us. Now it just doesn't bother me at all. But that was horrific. I thought that was awful to send me out on something like that.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD, the Delta Dunklin Democrat, talking a lot about his initial foray into reporting here in Southeast Missouri. And Jeff, it must have worked out because you've been here and you've worked your way up to managing editor.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your thoughts. I've interviewed a lot of people. I've interviewed Gary Figgins, who worked at the paper over in Crothersville, who has his own magazine now.
Yeah.
He feels, and I feel as well, that a local community paper is one of the most important things that a community can have, simply because we need local people covering local issues. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I've always loved paper, though. I've always loved newspaper. When I lived we lived in the suburbs of Chicago, but when I lived in the Chicagoland area, I subscribed to both those papers, the Tribune and the Sun-Times. I got the Milwaukee paper. I got the little paper for our suburb. I just always loved paper. I wanted to be a journalist. But yeah, I absolutely do. I mean, nothing against really social media, but if that's where you're going to get your news, I just can't seeing something, breaking news, something big for your local area, city council meeting or a school board, something really happens, and it's, sandwiched in between, grandma's peanut butter cookie recipe and baby pictures. I mean, and I think you need that accountability, and I think we have a duty to tell the people what's going on.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD, the Delta Dunklin Democrat. And Jeff, when I was going to school at Southeast Missouri State University, I was lucky enough, I wrote for the Capitol Arrow. And I did not realize the amount of hours that is required to put a newspaper together. Because you're up against deadlines, and you think, and you don't realize when you're putting out either a daily paper or twice a week paper or whatever. I mean, you have a deadline every day of what you need to get in that paper.
Yeah, it's not a factory where it's these Chevys are coming down. They're the same. I have to create something new. It was 4 times a day. Now we're down to 2, and just so people know, and I wrote a column about it, it wasn't because we were failing. The DDD does very well. This area supports their paper very well. However, the cost of ink, is skyrocketed. The main thing was postal. It's quadrupled. So we had to go to print twice a week. But we put something new on that website every day. And yes, there are deadlines, and there's so much. I have a new advertising girl that started last October. She'll soon be there a year. And she said I had no idea what it took or how. I said, this is pretty fast-paced. And she said, I laughed. I went home and told my husband, fast-paced. She says, it's unreal. Phones never stop.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD. And I can remember back when I worked for the Caballero, we'd be up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning trying to get this thing because we're waiting on people to finish their columns because they're saying, hey, you've got 3 columns you need to fill. And then he would give you a 2 1/4 length column. So now you're moving it around and you're aligning it and things of that nature. And then you're having pictures of photographs, and then you have cartoonists and things of that nature. It was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever been a part of.
Right.
And you do that every day of your life, correct?
Every day. There are no days off. I thought, I remember when I started, Steve Patton, he was my editor, and he knew I came from a very stressful job. Working at detox unit was stressful. He said, you're going to fly. You're going to love this. It'll be so easy. There are no days off. My phone rings constantly, through the weekend, middle of the night, whatever. And which I really do enjoy. I'm glad people think like this, but they think the paper knows all the answers. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it's about. They're going to call the paper. So if I don't know the answer, I try to give them somebody that will help them. But I think it's a noble profession. I really enjoy it. I probably could have went on. I left the paper, about 3 years into it. I thought I went to FCC not to do counseling. I didn't want to do counseling anymore, but I went to do marketing. And I enjoyed that, but no, I missed the paper big time. So 6 months, they called and asked me to go out and have lunch with them, the new publisher, and I said, yeah. And then we went to lunch again, and he offered me a job, and I said, yeah, I'll come back.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD, the Delta Dunklin Democrat. And Jeff, the one thing about the local paper is you could be inundated. There'll be 37 events all at the same time, and somebody wants you to be there to take a picture and then put a little article in about what's going on, correct?
Mm-hmm. And for anybody that, and I think I've been guilty of it at times before I moved down here, but anybody that ever says there's nothing going on in this county, there's something going on all the time. I mean, it may not be what you want to do, but if you want to see something or do something or be entertained or be informed, there's something going on. Next Tuesday, I'm dealing with this right now, so this is a little insight into my day. Next Tuesday at 6 o'clock, we have a town hall for the new sanitation. The city's taking over the sanitation. We also have an event at the VFW where they're getting money donated from 2 business organizations to build a new monument in front of the courthouse. Same time. We also have a city council meeting. Same time. All 3 got to be covered. I got to figure that out. So.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Week with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590. So, Steve, you're going to cut yourself into thirds and figure out how to do that, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I got it covered already. That's what I was doing right before I came over here. So.
And again, the one thing that you look at the DDD and you think about a newspaper, and I like the fact that you can get on your phone or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything like having a newspaper in your hand and just going through and folding it and reading it.
Yeah.
And just, does that sound like I'm...
No, that's... now I know a majority of people love it. They look at on their tablets and their computers and phones. But I've always enjoyed print, always. I call it refrigerator journalism. There's a grandma or a mama that wants to cut that picture out of that little boy or that little girl at a sporting event or whatever and hang it on that fridge, and you're not going to get that, on the phone or your tablet. So I think the print paper will be around for a while. I don't think it'll be around forever, but they're going to hold on for quite a while yet. It's just people enjoy it. They still enjoy it.
And again, you're talking about your careers. You've been a counselor. You've worked for the paper. Obviously, you've made a career out of the singing and things of that nature. What's Act 4 for Mr. Dorris?
Back porch. We talk about that. What are you going? I think I always want to do something. I've said before, I might semi-retire and, still work for the paper some, do some of their, still go to city council meetings and things like that. But, and singing, I'd like to keep doing that. That's one thing. If you're doing those crooners, you can sing when you're 80 years old, it don't matter. But, I don't know what I want. I want to travel for sure. We haven't been able to do that in a while since we moved down here. It's the paper keeps you really busy. I mean, we've took little trips, but we used to go to Vegas twice a year. My wife and I, we can't. It's just too busy, and there's no one to to pick up for you when you go.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD, the Delta Dunklin Democrat, and we're talking a lot about Jeff's earlier career. Let me ask you this. In the event that I said, you know what, I would love to hear Jeff Dorris come sing some Frank Sinatra, because I like Frank Sinatra. I know you don't think I do, but I really do.
Okay, I believe you.
Yeah, you're giving me that, because I'm 52 doesn't mean I don't know good music. Do you still make appearances? Could I say, hey, Jeff, would you come and sing for me?
Yeah, all the time. Please do. I still have business cards. And
well, how would we get a hold of?
I have a Facebook page, the Jeff Dorris Show.
Oh, okay, so we can get on the Facebook page as Jeff Dorris Show, and send you a message, and And here's the next thing, and a lot of people who are musicians and talented say, well, you don't get to request certain songs. I will sing a certain list, and that's it. What's your philosophy on that?
No,
Jeff?
I sing anything. Yeah, if I've got it,
Obviously.
I go by the background tracks now. And even if I don't have it, I'll sing it a cappella, a little bit, 2 or 3 lines just to make somebody happy. When you do Elvis, he did such a variety. So when I start off on that, they'll want the 50s and the 70s, but then they'll want a movie song. And I've got quite a few of those. So.
And again, we're going to welcome the Loop with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD here in Kennett, the Delta Dunklin Democrat. And Jeff, we talked a lot about Dean Martin and his movie career. What was your impression about Elvis Presley, when he was doing those movies?
Yeah, well, I'm one of the few that I really enjoy those movies. Not all of them. Some of them are just awful, but I think it did stagnate his career. He was... he was, singing to a camel, and the Beatles were, taking over the world. And I think it bothered him a lot too. He wanted to be a serious actor. That is the truth. But when he got out of the service, they did GI Blues, which, is a musical and made a lot of money. It was his first movie back. But he wanted to be very serious. So then he made Wild in the Country. It was a dramatic role, no singing. And it didn't do near as well. It did well. That was an Elvis pick, but then he did Flaming Star, which was a dramatic role, Western, and it did okay. But then he did Blue Hawaii, and that thing took off, and it was the biggest selling soundtrack record until Grease came along. I mean, that thing held records forever, and then his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, said, that's it. This is what you do, family-oriented musicals, and it just stuck. It worked.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris, managing editor of the DDD. Jeff's a very talented singer. If you've not heard him, I'm assuming we can get on the Facebook page, and there's some clips of you performing. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a few shots from Chicago area.
The Jeff Dorris Show is what we need to do on the Facebook. Yeah. And, Jeff, I can remember, and I know this is not all about Elvis, but I think it's very fascinating. I can remember as a young child with my mother and father, whenever Elvis had those specials from Hawaii that were broadcast, were they on the network TV?
Yeah, they were. They were. It was the first satellite. They hadn't done satellite before, and more people watched that first satellite show than watched man land on the moon. You know, that the guy had something. I don't know what it was, but he had something.
Absolutely. And we're going to welcome the booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris, managing editor of the DDD, the Delta Duncan Democrat. Jeff, and I know this is a very difficult subject to talk about, but you indicated that you were a counselor for 16 years.
Yeah.
And it really got to the point where you're like, I don't know if I can. While you were counseling and doing that, were you also performing in it all?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I sang just about every weekend. I really thought, well, I got out of it for a heartbeat, not long. And but I told my wife, I said, I just really miss entertaining. She said, well, do it again. And unfortunately for her, she gave me the credit card. And I went out and I bought the equipment and I bought everything I'd need to start the show again. So yeah, I always sang. It was a good outlet, for me. It was something different because, like I said, the counseling. Let me say something about the counseling. One of the reasons I loved it for so long was, I think because I saw a lot of those people in the clubs. I saw a lot of people that, had a problem with it. I drank socially, but this was I could point them out. I could see him in my head. I knew that guy. I knew that guy that was sitting by himself. It was kind of, very jovial and really enjoying the show. And then by the end of the night, all by himself, lonely, kind of furtively looking around with that thought in his head, now what am I going to do when this place closes? I got to go home. I'm miserable or I'm lonely or I got to drink. And I just felt for those kind of people. So I really, truly wanted to help them. And that was a big thing for me. And the second thing for me with that counseling was I had I had 4 children. I still have 4 children because I have a stepdaughter now, and she's not like a stepdaughter; she's mine. But I had 4 children, and I lost a son. I had a son that passed away as a child, and I was a very angry person for many, many years. I was mad at God, and I lived my life very differently. I had things that happened. I'd always took people's advice. I didn't want to quit the music business and marry my first wife. I didn't want to do that, but I did it because my dad wanted it. I didn't want to do certain things, but the boss wanted it. I did it. So I started living my life like no one's ever going to tell me how to live again. I'm going to do exactly what I want to do. Didn't mean to turn out to be a kind of a tyrant, but you do. Then I grew and I got better and I dealt with a lot of that. So, but I always had one question for God. Why was that happening to that little boy? Take me. He could have took me. Anyway, I was very angry. Well, when I became a counselor and counseling these people, you wouldn't believe the men that I counseled who had lost children, who had lost a son or a daughter. And when that happens, society, they kind of go right to the mom. They feel for her. They have empathy. They hold her. They hug her. They pray with her. And the dad we have to kind of be stoic and strong, and we're going to hold up, So when they would look at me and say, I got to have this pill or I got to have this needle or I got to have this bottle to get me through because you don't know how I feel. I said, no, I know exactly how you feel. So I reconciled that in my own heart, like, well, I had to go through that so I could help all these people. And that gave me great joy. That gave me great joy for many, many, many years. But then it's just counseling is a tough gig. It's a real tough gig.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD. And Jeff, talking about the newspaper that you're running now and kind of doing reporting, what's some of the most enjoyable things that you get to do? What do you like most about working at the DDD?
Well, I love meeting the people. I like being out in the community, interviewing folks. It's especially a small rural area paper, it's the only place in the world that you can go out and interview a senator or a governor, and then the very next day you go over to Cardwell and interview the man who grew the biggest tomato plant in the county. I mean, where else can you do that?
Absolutely.
It's just every day's different. And it's fun. and you just get to meet a lot of wonderful people. You know, eccentrics, and I just love it. Yeah, that's my favorite part.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590. Talking to Jeff Dorris, managing editor of the DDD, the Delta Dunkel Democrat. If you're interested in seeing Jeff, any of his performances, it's the Jeff Dorris Show. It's on Facebook. You can get on there. You need to add it. He tells me that My Way by Frank Sinatra is his favorite song of all time. I'm just kidding. It's a Dean Martin song, I'm sure. What is your number one Dean Martin?
I don't know. There's so many of Dean's. I like Dean's
persona.
Yeah, I liked him. I liked that easygoing. Everybody thought he drank, and he did socially, but on stage it was apple juice. It was just an act. He was never. You couldn't act, be in a weekly TV show, make records, play Vegas as a drunk. You just couldn't do it. So he had a great, and I stole a lot of his show. I stole a lot of his lines. I like a lot of. He had one great line that I loved. He'd have his drink in his hand. And he'd say, "I never drink unless I'm nervous. And right now I'm a wreck." I just thought that was one of the greatest, coolest lines. So.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590. Talking to Jeff Dorris, managing editor of the DDD, the Delta Dunkel Democrat. And Jeff, you've been back here how long now?
Last month it was 9 years.
Does it seem like it's been nearly 10 years since you've moved from Chicago here?
No, not really. And like I said, there's things I didn't think I'd ever miss it. I was so happy when I first moved down here. I'm so glad I don't have to be in that traffic. It'll take you 45 minutes to get across town to go to work, and then you battle the winter, and and then I'd be behind a tractor or something during harvest time. I thought this is a lot better. This is just so much better. But I do miss some of the city. The theaters and options, food options, things like that. But no, I love to visit, but I don't ever want to live there again.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590. We're winding down. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes left here with Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD, the Delta Dunkel Democrat. Jeff, you indicated that you lived in Chicago, you live in the city. Is it my understanding you live in the country now?
Well, yeah, a little, not far, 2 miles out. That's all. But
it's
like for me, it's great.
Well, considering you're the man who's like, I need a skyscraper every now and then. I bet.
Here's the deal. When we moved down here, my wife wanted a big yard, man. She wanted acreage, and I kept trying to tell her, you've got to take care of that yard, and she says, and I don't want neighbors, because you're right. You're just right on each other, So we don't have a huge, I think we got about close to an acre, and she loves, and then she landscapes and does the flowers and all that. And I've said it a million times since I've been down here. You show me a home with a beautiful lawn, beautifully landscaped, tons of flowers and shrubs and trees, and I'll show you a very tired person or a retired person, because it's a lot of work. But yeah, she loves it. I like being out there. It took me a while you can see the stars at night. It's just dark. It's just so dark out there, and that's nice. It's very, very quiet. So I like that.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD, Delta Dunkel Democrat. And Jeff, as we're kind of winding down, if we're interested in getting a subscription to the DDD, how would we go about doing that?
Well, you can go online to the dddnews.com, or just call us, 888-4505, and we can hook you up. And we have many options too.
And again, we've talked about the fact that I love the newspaper, but you can go totally without getting that. You can do it all online, is my understanding.
Yep, everything online if you want to, and that's fine too. I like it in my hands. I like books in my hands. I don't read it on the Nook or anything. I like my book.
I agree. And in the event that we have some kind of a item that we'd like the DDD to try to cover, can we also call that same number?
Absolutely. Yep.
And I know that I've got to know Jeff probably a year or two ago, maybe,
a couple of years now.
Yeah. And we've always had a good relationship. He's never been crossways with me, never disrespectful. We've always got along. Yeah. So he loves to talk to people. I think that's one thing you can say about Jeff Dorris. He's never met a stranger. Because when I went up to him, he's like, "What's up, buddy?" And off we ran. So I really appreciate that.
Wow. Thank you.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590. And Jeff, tell me a little bit about your plans for the next 5 or so years.
Well, I mean, with the paper, there's a lot of things I've accomplished a lot with the paper that I wanted to. I revamped, the team, we revamped the website. I think it's very sleek, very sharp, very modern looking now. We've redesigned the paper. The paper doesn't look like it did when I first came down here. I wanted it. I wanted to look like a big city paper, and I think we've accomplished that. And what I'd like to do is, I certainly want to see the online edition grow even more, but I'd really like to see the print paper. People subscribe to the print or advertise in the print. I just think there's still a market for it. I really do. And when you go in and look at the analytics of the paper, so many people will say, well, I bet it's just a bunch of old people that, I look at it, if not every day, every other day. I want to know who's on that online. I want to know who's reading and buying our paper. And by far, it's for the 35 to 55-year-olds. And that, it kind of did shock me, because I thought, it must be a lot of seniors, but it's not. It's not. Now, I'd like to be able to get that younger, 21 to 33. We struggle with that, but I just think that's the culture. They want their news quick, and it's just different. But I'd like to get that. So there's some things with the paper that I'm looking forward to, that we're gonna try more video. There's quite a few things I can't talk about right this moment, but we've got some plans for it.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD, the Delta Dunkel Democrat. And Jeff, one thing that we haven't even talked about is the update of the building.
Yeah, that was wonderful. We work for Russ Communications, and that's Russ Building, and we tried to sell that thing for 5 or 6 years, and finally got it sold, and we were able to. We just didn't need all that room. They don't print the paper here any longer. It's printed in Cape, and it gave the appearance that the paper wasn't doing well. And I'm telling you, it wears us out. So when you got everybody spread out, now we get lots of compliments about it, and that's something y'all can look forward to. We'll be having a big ribbon cutting grand opening very soon. Absolutely,
and there's nothing I like a good ribbon cutting.
That's right, especially when there's food, and there'll be food.
Absolutely.
I ask everybody when I'm going to a ribbon cutting, y'all going to have food? I'll send a reporter. If you're having food, I'll come personally.
Absolutely. And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590. Talking to, Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD, Delta Dunkel Democrat, and was winding down. If you're interested in seeing Jeff perform, Jeff Dorris Show on the Facebook page, give him a shout out. He would love to let you know what's going on with all that. You've got to see him. He's really, truly amazing. And I'm not just saying that. I have actually seen him perform. He is very, 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 very talented. And for someone who is, how do I say this? Wanted to be a writer from the time I was little, a very gifted writer. I mean, all of your stuff is very good, I think.
Thank you. Again, some people have different ideas about it, but I really do enjoy it. I love writing my column. That's because that's mine. That's my opinion. The rest of the time you have to, I dropped out of school, but I know my basic Associated Press, you got to do AP style. So, there's just a certain way you got to write. But yeah, I enjoy writing very much.
And again, if you haven't got a subscription to the DDD, you need to get online and do that, or you can call the phone numbers 888-4505. Is there also a Facebook page?
There's a Facebook page, website, yeah.
Get online and do all that. It's truly amazing. Jeff, is there anything that you want to leave us with before we sign off?
No, I really enjoyed myself. I appreciate you having me, and you can call also and book a job. I'll sing for you too. You don't have to look where I'm playing, but you just call me.
Absolutely. And if we need to get a hold of you, how do you want us to get a hold of you?
Call the paper, yeah, or stop by. I have cards there, business cards for both the business and my wife kind of runs the business anymore. She's, like I said, she married me, took all my money, and.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, winding down with Jeff Dorris, the managing editor of the DDD. And the last thing, again, I'm going to hold you to that because there's nothing I like better than a Frank Sinatra song. I know that you're a Dean Martin guy.
Yeah, but I love Frank. My favorite Frank song is Summer Wind. It's a song called Summer Wind. I just think it's great.
And again, we would like to thank Jeff Dorris for being here on Welcome to the Booth on KDX AM 1590. I can't thank him enough for all he's done. I appreciate the 55 or so minutes that he's given us here today. It's been truly entertaining and interesting. Reach out to the DDD. Reach out to him. Book a show. Go see him on a show. He's amazing. Get that newspaper, take it and crumple it up and then, cut it out and take the pictures. It's really something that we need to truly enjoy. So on behalf of my producer, Misty Hankins, my executive producer, Evan Todd, I'd like to thank you for making us part of your day. Hope you have a great afternoon and a better tomorrow.